Hey everyone, Bryan here, back for another action-packed episode of the Driveway Marketing Podcast. Actually, today we have Ioana with us, and she is our furthest guest. She is so far coming to us live from fill in the blanks. Go ahead, Ioana.
Excellent.
Amazing. People are like, on a funny note. So I work out of my house. I have for years. And I finally just told people, I just tell people I'm a sales consultant because they can't figure out why can a guy work from home for 20 years? I'm like, because I wear shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops because I choose to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, they thought I was Mr. Mom because my wife's an interior designer and she's running in and out of the house and I'm home. So I used to go with it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Mr. Mom. I'm not Mr. Mom. I run a business and I talk to people like Ioana from all over the world all day long. So here it is. Just after Independence Day in the US, I have had at least 2 hours with 5 different people from 5,000 miles, 7,000 miles away going to my west. And now I'm 3,000 miles or so going to my east. So there you go. I'm 3/4 away around the world. I need to talk to someone else today from that other stuff.
That's amazing, Bryan. Thank you so much for your invitation. And indeed, it's great to just talk to people from all over the world. And I'm jealous listening to what you're doing on a daily basis, I have to say.
I broke out the flip-flops today because I feel a little guilty. Just saying. I broke out the flip-flops. So they say it's the flip-flop, the laptop lifestyle, the flip-flop lifestyle. Well, it still work, right? I just happen to live in paradise. So I'm lucky. So anyway, so give us, because I don't really, I mean, I invited you on, we did a little bit of background on you, but share a little bit about how you got to where you are, because you like to talk about mindset. That's a big pill to swallow, right? Because
yes.
And it's funny, I'm just gonna and then I will shut up, I promise. And I stopped drinking coffee like 2 hours ago. Is that interestingly enough, I've been talking to, on this podcast, outside this podcast, I've been talking to all kinds of people that are in this industry, home services, among others. And it's really interesting that your name came up because a lot of these folks are talking about the mindset of success and the mindset of failure, but no one knows how to, well, how to identify it, right? So you can't touch it, right? It's not like it's a new piece of equipment for your truck or a new lead source or a new magic pill, right? Because it's been a lifelong journey for me. I mean, I've probably spent the last 20 years trying to at least think about mindset, and then I stumble and fall on my face like constantly. So I would be curious to say, one, how did you decide this was your calling, your North Star?
Yes.
And then how can we as entrepreneurs and owners and other stuff how can we think about, where do we start? And then, because you're never done, right? So where do you start? And some ideas about that. So let's hear about you. Let's go.
Thank you, Bryan. So I'm originally from Romania. I moved to Switzerland 15 years ago. And while I was a teenager, my dad was suffering from depression. And I really felt helpless. I did not know. I wanted to do something and I did not know what. And I started reading a lot about mental health. I started reading a lot about well-being. I started reading a lot about mindset. Back in 2018, I was trained as a mental health first aid instructor. So right now I'm giving courses all over Switzerland to companies and teach people how to recognize the symptoms, how to give that first help when it comes to mental health. I'm also an improving mental well-being coordinator. So I'm going a lot also in the mental health space and mental well-being, Bryan. But of course, I've discovered about 2 years ago that it's all about mindset. And, I found out there is no education on how to build mindset, on how to build, for example, long-lasting relationships, on how to communicate better with one another, how to understand each other better, right? And I'm just giving you the example, like how to drive a car, because of course, if you need to drive a car, you need a course, you need to pass an exam, because otherwise then they will never let you drive the car on the streets.
Unless you live in Florida. Florida, anything goes here. Sorry.
Yeah, but when it comes to emotional well-being, when it comes to mindset, I really think it should be the same. We really need to have the proper education to be able to go out there and to foster those great relationships with everyone around us.
That's really interesting. Yeah, sorry. That's really interesting because as owners and entrepreneurs, right, we're thinking about getting stuff done better, faster, the right the first
Yeah.
time, right? And communication is at the heart of the expectation falters, right?
Mhm.
So all right, so given that you talk about education that, so as an owner,
Mhm.
so do they start with themselves? Do they focus on other people? Like how do you even start to think about like how do you start to think about why should I care? Why should it be
Mhm.
important?
I started with myself, Brian, and I started with myself the moment my marriage started to go down south. And that was the moment that I said, okay, there's something that I need to do. And what am I not seeing here? And it's very easy. All the time you blame the other person because, of course, that's the person that pushes all your buttons. And you're like, yeah, I'm the perfect one. Why is that person pushing everything? I'm doing everything great, right? And then the moment I started working on myself, and of course I invested a lot of resources and time in further studies and doing some coaching and doing CBT, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy, and Dr. DiMartini method as well. I've realized that my husband, he's only pushing my emotional baggages, which I have had since my childhood, right? So he just came in front of me, put a mirror in front of me and saying, okay, this is where you have the pain that you have. And it was very hard for me to understand that at the beginning, Brian. I completely refused. I was no, 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 no. It doesn't work that way. But, you know, knowledge can only flow into minds that are open. I always say that. And by trying to work on myself, by trying to see, okay, what exactly is it? What exactly is he pushing? Where am I doing the exact same thing? What does it mean? What lesson do I have to learn from here? How can I change my mindset? It really helped me a lot. And it helped me not only in my marriage, but also in my work. Because, sometimes you meet people and they are really triggered by their managers. They go to work and like their managers tell them something and immediately they explode. Right.
That happens in the home service business. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get a front row
Yes.
seat. I watch the volcano of emotions sometimes flow over, as they say.
Yes, but that's the problem because we as individuals, we do not know how to deal with our emotions, right? We don't know how to communicate better with one another. And let's face it, most of us come from families where parents did not have the right tools or resources when it comes to emotional well-being.
It's hard, right? So
Yeah.
I'll jump in for a second. So my wife and I have been on this journey for a long time. We've taken our kids down this journey. They're now young adults. And only now are they started because when we were talking to them 5 or 10 years ago, when they were, 10, 12, 14 years old, they were like, oh, what is this hocus pocus weird stuff? My wife and I had gone to an event and I never forget, we went to a Tony Robbins event. And so it was really life changing for us. We were really lucky. We had a great opportunity. And my oldest son said, man, what's wrong with you? He's like literally identified what's wrong with you. Subsequent to that, we took that journey with them and we took them through those types of experiences. They've all walked, our entire family's walked on fire, that kind of stuff. So again, we as a family unit worked on mindset and overcoming barriers and trying to become better communicators, which is still hard, right? But not everyone wants to do that. So but all right, so let's just say you come from that place, right? And so you're in work. How can I mean, I just wanted this to be kind of practical for our listeners, right?
Yeah, sure. And it's
So how
great. I
can
love
so
giving.
so if you're a manager and
Mhm.
your team is, let's just say, setting off emotional barriers, what are some things they can start to identify? Because maybe they need help, right? And
Mhm.
they're acting out because they need help in other ways, right? Maybe so. Could that be something that we could identify, or should we as entrepreneurs not identify? Like, I don't know, it's kind of one of those like,
Mhm.
it's like one of those lines going, well, it's not my problem if they're having a problem at home, but if they're bringing it to work, they're having a problem at work.
So, Brian, it's all coming down to our perceptions. So, people all the time, we perceive things and we always categorize things. We say this is good and this is bad. And mostly these are limiting beliefs that come from our childhood. Because if in our childhood, I don't know, our parents told us that red haired are not good people. I'm just giving you an example. then you grow up with that impression that red-haired people are not good people. And guess what happens? The moment you meet a red hair, because that's already inside of you, that red hair person will show you that it's not a good person. And you're like, your brain will immediately tell you, see, I told you, you knew it already, right? So it's all based on perceptions. If you have, okay, another example. When you are a child and you got bitten by a dog, all your life, you'll be scared by dogs. So the moment when you're an adult and you meet a dog in the park, guess what you will do?
You're gonna
Your
run away.
body, exactly. So it's the fight, flight, or freeze, right? The
Yep.
response the brain immediately gives you when this happens. But for a person, if I never got bitten by a dog, the moment I see a dog, I just want to pet the dog. So it's literally everything what we perceive. Like whenever something happens to us is that perception that we have on that thing. Because if a person, Bryan, comes to you and that person tells you you're stupid, but you know you're not stupid, you do not have that emotional baggage. Your parents never called you stupid, or teachers never called you stupid. So you're perfectly fine with that. And then you just look at the person and you say, oh, okay, thank you, right? But if you have that pain inside of you, that emotional baggage, which comes again from your childhood, you immediately get triggered and you get angry and you get defensive and everything else. So same, going back to your question and going back to the office, it really depends on what you perceive. Like really, when something happens to you, like your manager tells you something to do, you just need to ask yourself, okay, why did I get angry? What's my emotion right now? When did I experience this emotion before? What does this tell me? And to really go down the line, because these kind of things, I mean, it really depends, because a lot of people, they say, yeah, I'm not feeling appreciated. I'm not like whenever the manager does like this, I felt that I don't count. I'm not feeling appreciated, right? And then if you ask them, okay, when this happened to you before? Oh, actually also in my previous job. That's why I moved jobs, because also the previous manager did not appreciate me, right? And if you go down the line, you just go to the root cause and you see, okay, where did that happen? And that's where we need to go to really treat the root cause, to really see where it's starting.
That's a really deep concept, right? I'm just thinking of like like I'm running an HVAC company, like how am I gonna, get a therapist for everybody on the team, right? So, but one thing you said is really important that I think everyone can appreciate is most people leave their jobs, not because they think they can do a better job, it's because they feel underappreciated.
Exactly.
So,
And then the next step is, Bryan, to think when you are not appreciating someone. And I think that's a very heavy one, because your brain will immediately tell you, no, no, no. Yeah. So the moment you realize that actually you are also doing the same thing to other people, maybe you're not appreciating your children, maybe you're not appreciating your parents, maybe you met somebody in the train this morning and you did not appreciate because you did not give your seat, right? You are actually doing the same thing as the manager does to you. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying.
no, and I do. It's actually kind of relating to that. We've had some turnover. Our business, we've had some turnover, and some of it was kind of voluntary. People just decided to move on their own, and some of it was involuntary. And then I realized, kind of along the same lines, like, I realized that I wasn't being a good leader and helping them succeed. So rather than, and then there's business guidelines around it. So I decided that, okay, I appreciate the person for what they were trying to do, but they were not doing what the business needed. There was this out of alignment thing. So I had to retool and redo that stuff. And it's really the same, really a similar idea. Like, I'm going to kind of reframe this in another way, is it sounds like you're saying that if there are challenges, look at yourself and understand what are you doing to cause the triggers, right? So as leaders,
Exactly.
business owners, and entrepreneurs, like if my team isn't performing, what's going on, right? Is it, what am I doing to not let them succeed, right? So if they're not being good communicators, maybe I'm not a good communicator. If they're not understanding what the job is, maybe I'm not doing that. So you can kind of back to the limiting beliefs,
Exactly.
help them find ways to succeed and not find ways to fail. That's a
Mhm.
really, but that's a really
Yeah.
big boy. That's a really, I'm going to say that's a really big boy thing to do.
Yeah.
As do you see that? And I know you deal with all kinds of people because you said you talk with so companies and other and leaders. So as
Mhm.
people get, I don't even know, I don't know if this is the right word, but as people get more experience and more mature, is there ever a time they can't make a change to their mindset to adjust that? Let's just talk about emotional baggage and, kind of the explosions at work, or is it something we all can do and we can all get there?
Look, Bryan, it's really depending on each and every individual. It's also like we all have our time, right? Even if I go, for example, to my dad or my husband or my daughter and say, look, you really like this is what I think you need to do, or this is like if you try to think in this way or that way. If they are not open to it, they will not do it. And it's same with me. I was just like, I found a book today which I read about, I don't know, 6 years ago, and I was just looking through it because of course I did some underlying, and I was like, oh my god, but this is exactly what I'm doing today. How come I did not wake up then?
Because we all know exactly what's wrong. We just choose not to fix it.
But that's what I'm saying. Look, our brain just wants us to survive. Our brain doesn't care that you, Bryan, want to develop yourself or want to work in the garden or want to lose weight or want to go to the gym. No. The work of the brain is for you to survive, not to die. And that's why we get no, and that's why, like, also a lot of people are waking up in the morning and like, okay, as of Monday, I'm going to the gym. Yeah. And you wake up and you see it's 6 o'clock in the morning, it's dark and it's cold, and the brain tells you, seriously? Why don't you just stay in bed? It's fine.
All right, so we've identified challenges and problems. Let's start talking about like how do we so what are some ideas or some thoughts you have on how to get over that? Because you can't live in the past, right? It's more fun. I
Of
always tell
course.
people it's way more fun to be present, look to the future, and rely on the past instead of everyone who's unhappy lives in the past kind of stuff. So um
One
so
of
from
the
your
most
perspective, what should we be doing?
One of the most important things that people need to do first and foremost is to determine their values. And those values are like our fingerprints. Like we all have a set of values. And I'll just give you some example what values are. So values can be your business, your family, your children, money, traveling. So these are called values, but you need to know exactly what are your values, because a lot of the people, unfortunately, they inject other values. And I can give you an example. Like, for example, there is a CEO and he has a great company and he just passes on the business to his son. But his son, his value is volunteering. He just wants to go to Africa and just be a volunteer, be a doctor there. So guess what will happen the moment that the son will take on the business? He
Well,
might
'cause
make the business work, but he will be burnout, he will be unhappy and everything else because he
right,
doesn't live in his values.
right. That's interesting.
Yeah. Or if I don't know, the wife likes to travel and the husband doesn't care. The husband just want to sit home and take care of the garden and watch TV, right? And the wife comes and says, no, but we need to travel, we need to travel. And guess what? They go on holiday and the husband will always be kind of moody and not in a mood. And of course, the wife will be the one getting angry, like, why are you not happy? Yeah,
We're
guess
traveling
what?
because I just want to sit home and relax because I work too much. And this is like an adventure, not
Yeah,
in Europe, they use the word holiday. We call vacation. They're different.
yeah,
Holidays
exactly.
are adventures where you go do lots of things. Vacations are where you go one place and you sit still. They're very, very different. So.
Do you get my point, Bryan? So the thing is, like, we need to understand each other's values. And when we talk to people, especially the ones that we are working on or our partners, we need to speak in their values. We need to
I'm writing
understand.
notes.
Yeah. So I'm just giving you another example. For example, the husband, his number one value is business, and the wife's number one value is children. So when they will go shopping into a mall, guess what they will see? The wife will see all the shops which are with toys for children, clothes for children, everything children related. And the husband will only see those shops which, I don't know, laptops, phones, maybe suits for his business, whatever his business needs. And again, if the wife or the husband doesn't know how to speak in each other's values, guess what will happen?
They'll have some challenges and some conflicts. Yeah.
Exactly.
I can think so one of the things we talk about in our business, we talk about our values of like it's family business fun, right? So we talk about that's what it's supposed to be. And one of the things that, because I know when I was working for big dumb companies that I it was family first, business second, and they didn't always appreciate that. And even with my team, because we're remote and people do other stuff, like there's a couple rules we have because they're all remote, right? One is if you need to take a day off to do family stuff, you just tell Bryan you need to take a day off because it's family stuff. Don't lie. You don't have to lie to me and make something
Yeah.
up
Yes.
like that,
Yeah.
because they're like, and they can't get. It took them a long time to say no. Listen, I'm not gonna ever question you, right? But along the other side of the same part of the kind of the double side of the coin is if you decide to do that and then we don't find out about it,
Yeah.
you're not being truthful with me, because I also value the business. And if you lie to me, you're lying to our clients. And so that could also lead to your exit because you're also not taking care of my family, the rest of the team's family, and our client's family. So it's a double. So so for me, it's like, hey, because you're not, if you're not able to perform to help our clients, that means you're hurting them and their family. And so they kind of look at you like, I get it, you have to take time off, but they understand it, right? Because it's a core value. It's just
Yeah.
it's me, and that's just how we flow. And it's good and
But
bad, right? So
yeah, but it's not only that, Bryan, they are also lying to themselves, because the moment you think, oh yeah, I'm lying to my boss for whatever reason, but you're also lying to yourself. And that I can honestly tell you, on a long time,
they've done it before, because that's how they thought they had to survive, right? I'd have to believe that that is the case. So my people listen to the podcast, my team's in the Philippines, right? So why do I do that? We've got a lot of single moms who are taking care of their families. People are able to buy, they're able to buy their first house, their first car, lots of other opportunities. And some people don't make it very long because they think they're just in it for a quick hustle. And they're the ones that are lying to themselves because they think it's just some quick hustle, and it's really just we're trying to create this long-term opportunity for everybody, not just me, but for them as well. And
it's also, yeah,
they're the ones that, by the way, they're the ones that find themselves, how they find their way to the door faster than everybody else because their actions are not in alignment with everything else.
I think it's also the culture, right? Because the more you go, I mean, I have nothing against Asians or something, but I think they are just educated that well, or not non-educated that well, right? So I
Very
think,
different. Education system is very different than Western
exactly.
and European. So culture is a big part of how we manage. And in fact, I've got a course, if you guys want to see it. I talk about, I've been doing remote things for 30 years. So I've had teams all over the world for more than 30 years. And culture is different everywhere. Culture in Europe is very different than culture in the United States, right? So the fact that you guys are getting ready to take off the entire month of August, while it sounds to be fantastic as an American in business, right? As an owner of a business and looking at productivity and other stuff, we kind of scratch our head. Like, so my wife's an interior designer and she gets fabric from Italy, and like, you better get your order in the next week, because they, even though they're off for the month of August, they stop working 2 weeks before.
Yes.
So
yeah.
So the fact that 6 weeks of productivity, you lose 15% of the year's productivity because it's just time for holiday. While it's great, you guys think it's great and we think it's nuts. So it's all relative, right? So it's all different. And then we find Asians, Filipinos, they're very subservient. Their education system's different. Their kind of male female relationships are very different. And so some of that stuff, I just have to scratch my head, and I'm like, well, you're working for an American company with American clients. You need to think about the customer's values, not just, and how they align with yours, right? So
I guess it's not easy.
it's a challenge for sure. It's Chinese is different than Singapore is different. And it's interesting. I mean, Latin America is very different than Eastern Europe. That is different than kind of the Baltic states where you are versus Switzerland versus the German kind of Anglo stuff. You can see in Europe the culture and work is very, very different, right? So it's just it's a global, and because of communications like this, we live in a global village, and it's just And I honestly, I have clients who struggle with dealing with different cultures, even in the US. Like
Mhm.
well, they're
So
from,
that's,
it's
yeah, that's what I
everywhere.
wanted to tell you. Like, I'm sure that you, if you speak with a person who lives in California, for example, I'm sure that you have different views on things. So, and you live in the same country and you have the same culture, but still the views and everything else might be
I think
different.
culture, well, everyone's at war with each other right now, which is crazy, but that's
Mm,
another story.
yeah.
But I would say it's a lot of it's regional, I think, in the US, probably just like in Europe, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Because the Northeast is very different than the South, and Florida's not really the South. It's just an extension of the Midwest and the Northeast. We just happen to live here. We all came on vacation, then we never left. Um, Texas is its own country. California is its own country. There's kind of, I mean, so if you just look at the political, not the political, just the population, where the population is, it's very different.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
very, very different. So,
I know.
all
I
right, so
know.
let's change gears for a second. So values. So how about, because we don't have, so what's one other area? So you're thinking about values. So we had this long discussion about that. So what is something else? So you got to understand your interaction.
Mhm,
What are their values? Do they align with yours? And then how do you be empathetic? How do you understand
mhm.
how to communicate with them? Maybe
The
what's one other
second,
big topic we can share with them?
so besides values, I think the second most very important thing is to determine what is their why. So to really see, okay, what is the purpose? What gets them going? What is the passion? Because Bryan, when you find your why, I can honestly tell you that you can do everything. It
Oh, no
doesn't matter
doubt.
if somebody wakes you up in the middle of the night, if somebody says, okay, now you need to speak with a person regarding that or that. Because if you're really passionate, you will do it. And that is your why. But if you don't know your why, you'll be like, oh, yes, maybe should I try this? Yeah, it doesn't work. I'm not okay. Maybe next month, should I try this job or maybe should I do this?
Actually, that's a fantastic. I love that because I use the term not by accident. I use the term with Ioana, true north, right? So if you find
Mm.
where your star is you're
Mhm.
headed towards, right?
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Mm.
For me, it's always having I've always wanted to run a location independent business, right? That has
Mhm.
been I will do whatever you want, but if you ask me to go to the office 5 days a week, even if it's a regular company, before it was fashionable, I wasn't having it, right?
Yeah.
And then I've been on my own for 20 some years, 25 years, but every once in a while I kind of lose my mind and decide I can help someone and go to their office. And I'm going, this doesn't fit
Mhm.
with my why because my values are different than people's office values, right? They're people in the office are trying to schmooze their way to success, and I'm just trying to perfect
Mhm.
my way to do the right thing
Yes.
for the client. It's very different. I've
Mhm.
always been very client focused. I can say that you got to figure out why you're doing it. Are you doing it
Mhm.
just to make money? Is it just a money
Exactly.
grab? Because you're going to be unhappy.
Mhm.
You're going to get burned out. If you're doing it for your
Mhm.
family, you might find yourself doing different things. You can have you can have it all if you choose to. One of my friends, he's a very successful attorney,
Mhm.
and he said his why was, "I'm always going to be home for dinner." And people go, "Well,
Yeah.
you're an attorney. You can't do that. You have to work 24 hours a day."
Yeah.
He raised
Yeah.
four of his own kids, and I think he's
Yes.
adopted seven or eight more.
Mm.
So he has literally fostered older
Mhm.
kids from Asia because he felt that they needed a better life, and his kids were up and grown. So he's like, he just kept doing it. So he's an attorney, runs a law firm, and has like, I don't know if he's 8 or 12
Mm.
children, but he's got a lot of kids.
Mm.
He found out because his why was, I want to create a business where I can take care of my
Mm.
family
Yeah.
and be home every night. And he was very successful and able to do both.
Mm. And Bryan, I think our purpose and everyone's purpose in life is to really impact others. And of course, money is great, having a job is great, but I don't think people are really fulfilled until they are able to help others. And that it can be what you're saying, that he's a lawyer, he just adopted kids because he wanted to give them a better life, either by volunteering or really like by what you're doing, right? Because your business is trying to help other individuals. And same what I'm doing as well, like really impacting people.
Yeah, it's funny because I started this podcast because I'm like, people need lots of help and I only have so many hours in the day. Um, and I mentioned Tony. Tony talked about if you're not giving, you're not living. So
Mhm,
for the last probably 12 years, I've given to youths and entrepreneurship and sports. So I just
mhm,
I volunteer in a local school program. I help about 300 kids a year with entrepreneurship. I was involved in every sports program on the planet. I spoke and ran youth entrepreneurs at conferences. And people are like, well, why don't you have a business around helping kids? I'm like, no, it's my thing. It's my why.
Mhm.
Because if I'm not teaching the next generation of kids how to be think entrepreneurially and how to do stuff, then I failed, right? So it's
Yeah.
fun that now that the kids that I taught when I shared when they were 15, 16 years old, they're now in their 20s and I see them, they go, Mr. Bryan, I see you, right? I see you. Like that stuff you shared with me was right. I'm like, I get it because I wasn't candy coating it. I was giving you the real deal. So I hope people that listen to this realize that this is the real deal. Like you're getting exposed, and you can't obviously consume and fix it all, but hopefully you get to think about how to find your why. So
Mhm.
so I think that's a perfect place because I don't want to get too deep because my head's already exploded.
I'm
So I want
sorry.
to say that no, this is great stuff. So I want to kind of finish up on. So
Mhm.
I want to kind of
Mhm.
wrap up with three ideas. One is if you're having challenges, think about why you're having challenges because you're
Mhm.
probably not understanding where the other person is, and it may be
Mhm.
rattling your cage because I know it happens for
Mhm.
me, and I'm thinking about stuff that way. Two, the second thing as entrepreneurs, owners, workers, whatever, understand the values of who
Mhm.
you're with, why you're with, and you can listen to this discussion we had about culture,
Yeah,
right? Because there's
exactly.
cultures inside of economic status and where people live in town, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Mhm.
And then the other one is find your why. Like that's so
Yeah.
cool. I love that. Love that why. So, Ioana, I know you have some amazing resources to share. So, can you share with everybody where to get it? And don't worry, as always, it'll be in the show notes. You don't have to worry about writing it down while your guys are on your way to your next job.
Mhm.
So you don't do that. So, Ioana, can you give us where we can find that? And then I'll get from you in the chat at the end where to send them.
I'll send you everything that I have, Bryan. Of course. Of course.
Okay. What's the name of it so they can hear it and see it? So we want to do a little marketing here. We want to do
It's actually,
multimodal.
yeah, it's actually an ebook which will help you communicate better. It's really it's called the Imago Dialogue, A Path to Deeper Connection.
Fantastic. And that sounds really deep. So we're gonna have to read that. So we're gonna make sure everybody gets that. I'll also send it out to my subscribers that are on my
Mhm.
private podcast. So they have access to it as well. So that they get a chance to look at it.
Mhm.
Ioana?
And can I just one more thing, Bryan?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm done. So I really invite everyone to also think about their habits, like the daily habits that they are having. Are they serving them or limiting them? And really try to adopt behaviors that will help achieve the goals that you're having.
You mean we have to do something different to get to our goals? We should just do the same crappy stuff that got us to the bad behavior to begin with. Oh, you're so awful. No, just
Look,
kidding.
Bryan, I mean, it's really great. I've seen so many, like everybody's about manifestation, visualization, and stuff like that. And I'm not against it, but if you will just manifest and sit on the couch all day long, I can promise you nothing will change, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the tiny what I don't know, when Thomas Edison made 10,000 ways that a light bulb didn't work, right? So he
Mm,
didn't manifest his way to a light bulb, right? He didn't
no,
visualize a light bulb.
no,
He worked at it.
no.
Yeah, that's what I happen to agree with 100%. Like, yeah, it's great to visualize. It's great to see the future because it's important. It's a
Yeah, of course.
visualization is an important part of the whole process, but you got to actually do the work.
Yes, you
So
need to work on it. You
that's
really
awesome.
do.
Well, anyway, thank you for being here today. As always, listeners, you guys are amazing. Thank you for the emails. I've been getting emails from people on some topics. A few of you don't disagree with me. That's fine. Feel free to disagree with me. I appreciate the candor. But thanks for another amazing episode of the Driveway Marketing Podcast, and we'll look forward to having everyone back next time.